As you can see, we're in a different location today.
We're staying in the hotel that we stayed in 2012, the first time we came to Denmark, and we want to tell you all about that trip. We're the Youngs.
We've spent our lives traveling the world.
And in 2018, we moved from
Chicago, Illinois to
Copenhagen, Denmark.
Now we want to share with you
how our new lives abroad
is keeping us young.
keeping us young.
are helping to keep us young. Hello,
Hi.
Welcome back to Traveling Young. So we want to, you see we're kind of in a different spot today. And we want to give you a quick lowdown of why that's the case. We're super serious and careful about everything COVID.
Yes.
We've been in our house.
We work from
nonstop.
home.
We work from home. We never leave.
Store, yeah.
But what happened was we had this hotel reward for one night that was going to expire in February. And we kept pushing it off because of things getting canceled. But then we decided that if we drove from our house to the hotel in downtown Copenhagen, which is only like 20 minutes, we park the car here, we only talk to one person, we come to the room, get room service, we feel like we can be safe. So that's why we're here, and we're going to spend this couple days planning what we're going to do over the next couple months with the channel, and this is a good way to get away and also maybe get some sleep. Because Brisket has not been feeling well and keeping us from sleeping.
He's fine. It's just he's had some stomach upset.
Yeah.
So.
And so what's super cool though is this is the hotel that we stayed in when we came here in 2012, and we thought it would be a fun time because we wanted to share a little bit about that trip and some impressions from it because that's the first time we came to Denmark.
Yeah.
And so we were at this Copenhagen Marriott back then. We're here now again. I also stayed here when I was moving here a couple times when I had some trips. It's such a great spot. But anyway, so we thought we'd talk through the trip and tell you a little bit about our itinerary, and then at the end, if you stick around, we're going to tell you how we change it if we redid the trip today, now that we know a lot about Denmark. So starting with day one, we have a very quick interesting story to tell. As we've mentioned on other videos, sometimes when we travel, we'd use miles for Maya and Miranda's ticket, and then I would buy my ticket later and it would be cheaper sometimes to be on different planes.
A lot of times.
So what happened was we came on different planes to Denmark. They flew and connected through Munich, and I flew direct. So I left a couple hours later, but we timed it so we'd arrive at the same time. So I was on the plane for hours. I arrived. They weren't here. I didn't know where they were. And it was super stressful because I've got all the bags.
We were stuck on a tarmac in Munich.
And I had all the bags. I was like running through the terminal after I got through immigration, trying to find. I thought they'd be waiting for me actually because they were supposed to land before me. They weren't, so I'm like, where's their plane? I'd ask people. They couldn't tell me. I didn't have a web connection on my phone. This was 2012. I didn't have like international service, and I'm like trying to find some internet terminal to use to research where it was a super stressful couple hours.
We'd had an engine problem with our plane, and they quickly turned back and went back to Munich, and so we were sitting on the tarmac, but where we were, there was no cell phone service, so I had absolutely no way of contacting Josh. So there was it was a bit of a mess, but then we finally, I was so happy to see him when I came.
I was happy to see you guys because I was
right
like,
out the door. I was like,
there's like no chairs, and I'm standing and pacing with the bags, like where are they going to come? What's happening? So finally we found them. And then we came here to the hotel, and we were so exhausted from traveling and all that.
But we had to
rigmarole
stay up.
That we didn't need to stay up. So we just walked around Christianstown that day, and it was real neat to see, for us to see all the boats on the water.
The houseboats.
That's not typical.
And the canals.
Yeah, and it's just gorgeous. We just love to just walk around Copenhagen. And there's times when we're like, man, we actually live here. It's crazy.
I know.
This is so
and
amazing.
Especially Christianstown, because I think we forget to go down there.
That's one of my favorite
really
places.
Beautiful.
And like not as many tourists go there. And there's some cool little restaurants and places. So we walked around Christianstown, and we came back and went to sleep.
Yeah.
And then day 2, we became full-on tourists.
Yes.
And we took a canal tour in the morning.
Yep.
And really got to see everything from the water.
And that was really fun. Maya was quite a bit younger, so she was still a kid back then. She was only 9, and so she really had a good time on the canal tour.
Yeah, and that was like basically one of the normal tourist ones. But now we, having lived here, we know that right next to the Marriott, basically on the other side of the harbor at Islandsbrygge, is the go boats, which we will do a video about that when the weather's nice, because I love those.
Yeah.
Or the Hey Captain boats we did with your aunt and uncle. That was really nice. So not that the normal ones aren't good, but there's a lot of really cool options for boat tours. And but we just did a normal one. We got to see the Little Mermaid. We got to see, the opera house from the water, all the stuff from the water.
And I think we drove by like some buildings that had one of the companies that you had worked for was in one of the buildings there.
Yeah, like one of my former employer at that time had an office in Copenhagen, and they have an office over in the boathouses that are right across from Christianstown, and it was neat to go by there. It was really nice. So we did that, and then we walked around, and then we went to Rosenborg Slot.
Yeah, which was amazing, and that was kind of one of our first times going into a Scandinavian castle, I guess. But it's so amazing because when you go into Rosenborg Slot, they have that throne room with the 2 huge silver lions, and then we got to see the crown jewels, and I think that was the first time I'd ever seen like crown jewels, and you just kind of are suddenly reminded, when you look at how old everything is, you're just reminded of that this is the oldest monarchy in the world, and it's just there's so much history.
It's really neat. So I would say at the moment, by the way, I would probably not change the first 2 days here.
No,
except I probably might have done like a go boat.
I think I'd do a go boat. Actually, I really like the Hey Captain.
Yeah, I would have. Yeah, I mean, if go boats are better if you know it, and because nobody's telling you anything, and now it's cool.
Yeah.
So if you're with a local, maybe, but otherwise, I think I would absolutely do the same things in the first 2 days as a tourist if I came back again. But the rest of the days might be different.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to wait a minute because we're going to take a quick break. And during this break, what we're going to do is show you a little bit about some of the behind-the-scenes negotiations when we discuss
the intense deliberations.
What are our videos going to be like? You get to see that because we're going to do a little bit of that while we're here in the hotel right now. And we're going to set up the camera, and you can see the rigorous debate. The intensity, it's amazing.
It's incredible we're still married.
Yeah, so we want you to see a little bit of this planning process that we go through because we spend a bunch of time and we're doing a lot of planning right now for the next year. So, so here's a quick little behind the scenes of Traveling Youngs while they plan what's going to be the next video. All right. We get those huge sumo wrestling inflatable outfits. And we get Hulk Hogan and you.
Yes.
What if we eat the wrong kind of hot dog?
10 different types of herring.
Snakes.
If we count all the statues in the Glyptotek.
Something with llamas. Driving a tank.
Yes!
All right, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed a little bit of that sneak peek of our process. All right, so if we continue on that, I guess it was 8 or 9 day adventure here in Denmark. Day 3, we went to Malmo.
We did, and I totally forgot that we had gone to Malmo until you mentioned it.
So here's the take on Malmo. We went because we were basically desperate to just visit every country, and it's easy. Malmo's right over there.
We're like, we can go to
And we
Sweden.
just wanted to go to Sweden to say we went to Sweden.
To say we went to Sweden, yeah.
I would probably do something a little different today. It's not that I didn't enjoy Malmo, but that was our objective. And we walked around and we had dinner. Now I've been to Malmo and I've been to Lund and I've been to Gothenburg and all these places for different reasons. And I enjoyed them so much better. So I don't think we got the most out of that day. We'll talk later around what we do instead of that. But and I mean, basically, it's just because we wanted to say we went to Sweden.
Yeah.
And we did. We went to Sweden.
We
of course,
did.
now we can go to Sweden almost, non-corona anytime we want.
But before Corona, we went there quite a bit because one of our favorite places, Folkerock, is there in Malmo. And who knew at the time that we'd be like, oh, let's go see a concert in Malmo.
Yeah. So then the next day, so that was basically what we did for the day.
Yeah.
We were still super tired and spent the day in Malmo walking around and having some food. The food was a little cheaper. That was nice. And then we came back and went to sleep. But then the next day, which is day 4 at this point, I got up and had lunch with some of my colleagues at the office we mentioned earlier. That was along the Canal tour. And Miranda and Maya just kind of hung out and relaxed. I think they walked around a little. But then we all got back together and went to the Carlsberg Brewery, which was very fun.
So cool.
Yeah, the horses that are there.
Yeah, and the big, like, the elephant
and just all those bottles. They have that crazy collection of beer bottles inside.
Yeah. And I'm so excited to see how it looks. I cannot wait for the COVID restrictions to get lifted because now they've completely kind of revamped that whole visitor center. But even back then, we've been on a couple brewery tours, and that is seriously one of the nicest breweries we have ever been in, and is so cool to see the history, and it was really good tour. We got to see the massive horses.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. I really liked as a beer connoisseur, as you can tell from the beer video.
We love beer.
That was a priority, and I'm glad we did it.
Yeah.
But then we came back actually to the hotel and decided to go over to Fiskatorvet because it's just a short walk from the Marriott, and walked around. I think we saw a movie. I don't remember what movie we saw, but I think it was like an Incredibles or something.
And this was when they were still, I don't think Fiskatorvet was done. I think they were still kind of building it. So there were parts of it that were done, and then there were parts that were still questionable, which I think led to us accidentally opening up an emergency door.
Yeah, we set off an alarm.
We set off an alarm.
They took us outside, and then we just booked it back to the hotel.
We did.
But before, there was this picture that I have of Maya standing in front of the sign. The emergency exit sign, and it's a guy running, and I got Maya running.
Yeah.
And so
and that was us.
That was we were those people. And then we turned an emergency exit into an emergency exit, and then ran back to the hotel and said, "No, what? It wasn't us. What do you mean? It wasn't us."
I don't know what you're talking about.
But I think we had dinner over there, and we did probably more than once because it was
pretty
so
close.
walkable.
And then it had
the hotel.
Had the food area, so lots of options.
Yeah, so that was day 3 and 4, and I think we do those a little different today, but we'll talk about that at the end of the video, how we'd reconstruct but despite that, we were still having an amazing time. We didn't regret any of it, and we really were just falling in love with Denmark the whole time.
And I think it was so surprising to us because Denmark, it was just kind of a whim because we'd traveled so much through the rest of Europe, and we were like, well, where else is there to go? And we were like, well, we've never been to Scandinavia, so let's go to Denmark. And so we didn't really know what to expect. And as every day went on, it was just more and more beautiful.
Yeah, and we had really good weather. And
we
super
had
nice.
Amazing weather, and we were just really falling in love. So
all right, so before we get to days 5 and 6, we're going to take a quick break and actually order some room service because we're pretty tired, and we thought we'd gift ourselves some nice room service here in the room. So we're going to eat up, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about days 5 and 6 on our trip to Denmark. All right, we're done eating, and now we're kind of doing a traditional hotel activity, which is watching sports we don't understand on the TV.
So first we watched luge, and now we're watching some pool thing. I have no idea what's happening right now. We're just making things up.
I will say there was that one time that we watched darts for like 3 hours somewhere. So
that ended up being very entertaining.
Yeah, but that's what you do when you eat room service and you got nothing going on.
Yep.
Weird sport. I mean, it's not weird. I just don't understand it. No. So I'm going to Google this later to figure out the rules. All right, we're back. We had a super nice dinner.
We did.
I mean, room service is a rare treat. But it's super nice.
We typically don't get it. We usually eat out.
People bring food straight to you, all prepared. And the Marriott, I've had a Marriott hamburger in, I don't know, 40 or 50 Marriotts in 40 or 50 different countries, and it's a standard. It's always slightly different, but it's always nice to get in the room.
And I didn't think it was possible to do socially distanced room service delivery, but she did very well. She came to the door, and there was no like personal touching or anything, so it was very safe. We both had masks on, and
So before we also took a nice nap afterwards.
We did. That's
which was
why
super relaxing. We're a little bit slow. Our minds are not fully functioning. We haven't been awake too long since the nap, but we wanted to talk about days 5 and 6 now.
Yes.
So on the 5th day, we basically spent a ton of time just walking around
the downtown area. Especially the Pedestrian street, which we still love to go to.
Yeah, and up the Round Tower, which is always one of my favorite places to go.
Yeah.
And then, one of my close friends who was in the Christmas video with us, Thomas, he was with us drinking beer and on the Christmas video, and he was living in Lyngby at the time. So we met with him in Lyngby.
And we went to a Lyngby BK match.
Yeah, we went to... Yeah.
This started our love of Lyngby BK. So everybody always comments about my Lyngby BK hat. And we do love soccer. And so hopefully when we can see matches again, we'll be able to go since we're so close.
Yeah, and that was the first time we'd been to Lyngby. Yeah. And at the time, I remember he was living in one of the houses, like... apartments above the street with all the shops and stuff, and we just thought it was such a cool place.
It's so cool.
And I wouldn't say that we plotted a move from that moment, but it certainly was in the back of our minds. Like, how could we live here? This is such a great place.
I always talk about the flower shop. I think it's Fia Ostil. That's there in Lyngby. It is absolutely one of my favorite places in the world. It is so beautiful. And I remember when we were visiting Lyngby the very first time, I thought it was, I was like, wouldn't it be amazing to be able to walk here and buy flowers all the time? Which I did this morning. So I'm very excited about that.
So then we just, didn't do much. I can't remember very many of our dinners, to be honest.
No.
None of them were super memorable, probably because it is a fairly expensive place to eat out around here. So I think we had pretty modest dinners.
Sticks and sushi at some point.
No,
maybe,
I don't think we did.
Not.
I think we went to. I don't think we went to Sticks and Sushi.
No.
But it's we had modest meals. I think most of the time here, probably hot dogs, stuff like that. The wrong one, most likely, but whatever one felt right at the time. Let's go with that. So then on day 6, we went to Roskilde. Yes. And that was something I really was looking forward to because I wanted to see the Viking boat museum. So many people had told me about it, and it was just amazing. It blew me away.
A good time. There's a whole little section that's kind of where the kids can dress up and pretend to be Vikings out on the ocean, and we could hardly get her out of there. She was in there forever dressing up and doing different things, and it was really fun for her. And then there's the whole outdoor area where they're doing different crafts. And
I was disappointed we did not have time that day to take one of the replica boats out. We could walk on a boat, but we couldn't take it. No, we did. It's just we didn't have time. But I have since been back and done one of the replica Viking boat things. Miranda wasn't with me, but
I still haven't gotten
we will go this summer and do that and get it on video because it is such a neat experience. But after Roskilde, we came back and took the train and went to the Glyptotek for the afternoon, which is a really neat museum.
Yes. And
it's just such a beautiful building, and the atrium in the middle of it is really pretty. Lots of really cool art. And Maya, if I remember correctly, went on one of her naked butt counting adventures while she was
definitely. And I think she got a high count there because there's a lot of Greek and Roman statues.
I don't think we mentioned this, but basically to keep Maya entertained in museums when she was little, we'd tell her to walk around and look for as many naked butts as she could find in paintings or on statues, and she'd go from room to room and count and keep track of all the butts.
Quite interested through many, many museums. So.
Yeah, she'd be always like, "Come on, Dad, let's go to the next room. I got 5 butts in this one." That was our way of keeping Maya as an 8-9-year-old entertained in museums. Yeah. So after that, we just walked around Nyhavn at night, and because it's such a neat, beautiful place to walk around. And again, it was August, so the weather was really nice.
Yeah, I know we did have dinner one night in Nyhavn. I remember that. Yeah.
But that was a really, really nice day. I would absolutely do that exact same day over again. All those things are just wonderful. Getting out of the city to Roskilde, getting to be able to walk around a museum, because we always try to go to 1 or 2 museums when we go somewhere, and the Glyptotek was a good one to choose. And of course, just walking around Nyhavn at night in August when the nights...
It's just magical being around Nyhavn at night, especially in the summer when it's kind of warm and everybody,
and the days are long.
Yeah, the days are so... Yes, and I remember walking around, and really that was our first time experiencing how light it stays for so long, and looking down and being like, oh, geez, it's 10:30.
Well, and I got some photos with it dark, so we must have been out at like midnight trying to get those pictures.
Probably.
Yeah, well, anyway, those were days 5 and 6. Again, at the end, we'll recap and what we think we do different. I think I'd probably change day 5 around a little bit if I had the choice today. But for now, we're going to go ahead and crash for the evening because we're super tired.
Old and tired.
And we'll start wrap up the trip, actually, days 7 and 8 tomorrow when we get up and have breakfast here in the hotel. And we'll tell you what we did at the end and then what we would do differently.
Yep.
All right, we'll see you in the morning.
Good night.
Good night. Hello.
Hi.
Good morning. How's it going? We just had a great night's sleep here.
We did.
And we had a wonderful breakfast. We are big Marriott people, by the way. I've stayed at Marriott's my whole life, so I've amassed a collection of nights from traveling in Marriott for work and everything. And so usually I get to go to the lounge, but they're closed because of COVID, so the lounge came to us. Yeah, it was super nice to have this wonderful breakfast brought to the room. It was a good way to start the day. And what we want to start the day with you is to tell you a little bit about the last couple days on that first time we came to Denmark. And so let's start with day 7 now. And on that day, we did one of our favorite things to do in Copenhagen, which is just walk around the streets and jump into shops and see what there is. But most of the day we spent at Tivoli.
Yeah, and that was our first time having goof.
Goof, yes.
It was fun.
And we just, it's a treasure to have. It still is amazing to me to have like an amusement park of that size, and they do such a great job of managing the layout to make it even bigger than it is when you're inside with all the levels and just, it's just amazing as an American to have something like that right in the middle of the city that we could walk to 2 blocks from the hotel.
Yeah, and we go all the time when it's actually open. So
yeah, we have season passes now. But we spent the day there, and it was a Friday, so we got to see the Friday night concert. And Tim Christiansen played, which is a super famous, as you probably know, Danish artist. He was doing some solo stuff then. And it was just so cool because it was completely packed. I mean, it was, really packed Friday night show. And it really our friend Thomas joined us and he said, we need to go on Friday. I'll join you at night for the concert. And that's exactly what we did, and I think it was a wise choice. And by the way, our hotel, we're on the 10th floor here. It's kind of bright, but we wanted to get in front of the window because hopefully Tivoli's you might be able to completely see the Tivoli right there. And when we'd come out, our room when we stayed here, that trip was facing the other side, Islandsbrygge and the harbor. It wasn't facing Tivoli. But when we go to the elevator, we just wait for the elevator and look out and see everybody. You can even hear sometimes people screaming.
And it was ride that goes up and then drops everybody down.
I think it was painful for Maya waiting till the last day almost to go to Tivoli when she'd see it. Every day we'd go and you'd see it from
it's coming soon.
It's such a cool view of the city from here and of Tivoli. But that was our day Friday, or on the 7th day, and then the 8th, which was a Friday, obviously. And then on the 8th day, which was a Saturday, our last full day, we went to Helsingør and Kronborg Slot, which was a beautiful really day. Cool. You can tell from these pictures, and Maya had a blast.
Yeah, and they had some of the Hamlet stuff out, and Maya was kind of at that age where she sometimes really loved pretending to be a princess, and especially when you're at a castle. And the pictures that we have, she's got this little crown on her head, and she begged and begged to be able to get that. And so we got it for her, and then she just had lived her best life that day because she was running around pretending to be a princess. So yeah,
it's just on a nice day, it's just a beautiful spot.
And the views are amazing.
And so then we actually met up with Thomas again in Bakken and walked around Bakken. I think you guys rode a couple rides.
Yeah, we did some rides.
And he said, you got to see this. You've got to see the Nyhavn. And so we walked.
And it was so much fun because it was so packed, and you'd see these people going around with these huge stuffed animals, and then somebody would have one of the huge Toblerone candy bar things, and it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was basically the end of our trip. We came back, walked around, took some pictures at night, and then flew back the next day. And that was our first 8 days in Denmark.
Yeah, and I remember going back and just gushing about how surprised I was about Denmark. And because I went into it not really knowing too much, and we came back and we were like, oh my God, everybody has to go to Denmark.
Yeah, and DC, which is where I'm originally from, is it's not a big biking city, but I'd say that, more people bike in DC than a bunch of other cities. And so I have a bunch of friends that are bikers, and I would just, show them these pictures of all the bike lanes and the cargo bikes,
the biking stuff,
and the ramps that you can take bikes easily up steps instead of having to carry it.
And this is all
amazing to see. And they're like, oh my goodness, if we just had a biking culture like that in DC, it'd be so much better.
It'd be so nice.
Yeah. So we had a lot of good stories when we got back, and that's really what kind of got us attached a little to Denmark. Although I came back from that trip and told my boss, because I visited coworkers here, and as I've been here a few times for work, I realized I was here 4 years ago today, actually, on a work trip. I said, I want to move to Denmark, and they said, Josh, we need you in the U.S. And I was like, oh, okay. But that was still always in the back of our heads, and that was the first place we went that we said, this seems like the place that we could live one day. We would love to live, and it's just
And
insane.
That was at the time of Pipe Dream. We were like, oh man, wouldn't it be so cool? We never imagined that we would be able to make it here.
Completely crazy that we're here right now. Yeah. But if we went through and redid that trip, now that first of all, I loved the trip. There was nothing about it I didn't like. No. But now that I've been to other parts of Denmark and realize, as everybody said, Copenhagen isn't all of Denmark, this is what I would do differently with the same 8 days that we had before. Day 1, I'd get here and I'd go to Rosenborg Slot. I love castles.
Yes.
And so I would want to go to a castle right off. And
that one's very doable because it's so compact and it's right in the city.
And the gardens, and you can walk around and everything pretty easily. Yeah. Then I'd be tired and go to sleep if I'm coming from the U.S. Day 2, I'd go on a canal tour. I'd go to the Little Mermaid. I'd go along the pedestrian road, go up the round tower, and walk around Nyhavn. And those are basically 2 of the videos that we've done since we've been doing this, because those are definitely some of our favorite activities. Yeah. And that's where we started when we started doing these videos.
And I think that's what people think of when they think of Copenhagen. So you kind of have to have that day where you just do those touristy things.
And that's a good way to get yourself out, walking a bit, and wake up. And then day 3, I'd head to Aarhus.
Yes.
And I'd spend day 3 and 4 in Aarhus, and I would go to Gamle. I would go to the ARoS. I would go to Moesgaard. I'd go to all these places because Aarhus.
Really come to love Aarhus, and I think we never gave it a thought the first time we came. I don't think we even knew it existed.
I certainly didn't know how to say it. I knew it existed because my company had an office there, but I didn't know how to say it and didn't know what was there.
But we've come to appreciate it, so we really love it there.
And then on day 5, I'd leave Aarhus and I'd go to Billund, and I'd go to the Lego house.
Yeah.
But it could be split between Lego House or Legoland. I prefer Lego House myself.
I think if you've got smaller kids, Legoland is probably the way to go. But if you're older, or if you're a kid at heart like me who loves Legos, I think Lego House. I really want to go back and go to Lego. I'm still jealous that you guys got to go to Lego House.
We'll do that. And then I leave Lego House and come back to Copenhagen, but knowing how I travel, I would try everything I could to squeeze in
as much as
a couple hours at Egeskov on the way back, because
it's gorgeous. There's so many things there to see.
I love it, and that's one of the nicest castles in Europe.
And there's a beautiful dollhouse there that you have to see, Tatiana's Palace.
And so Maya and I went there on our week 42 trip because it was so cool. Yeah. And then back here in Copenhagen on day 6, I'd go to the Carlsberg Brewery because beer, of course.
Yep.
And I'd go to Tivoli. And that's I had this thing as a parent that when Maya, we came, she was so little, we purposely waited to go to Tivoli towards the end of the trip. That way she behaved the whole time. But Tivoli, 100%. Yeah. And then day 7, we'd go to Roskilde and the Glyptotek. So Roskilde is a good day trip. Yeah. And then the Glyptotek is really easy to go to after you come back. Yeah. And I really like hitting a museum. And especially that one's really neat.
And the atrium is gorgeous. It's so nice to go. And you could go to Roskilde, come back, have a nice coffee in the atrium, and then walk around the museum, and it would be perfect.
And for us, when we were at the Marriott, it's basically just, I could see the roof right from here. So, it's really easy to go to for a couple hours. And then the last day, sorry, Kronborg. And I like it. Yeah. But if I only had 8 days and I had one palace/castle to go to,
belongs to Frederiksborg.
It's just, we love it there, and so and that's where I take friends when they come to visit. Kronborg is nice for sure.
But I don't let anybody leave without going to Frederiksborg.
Absolutely, even if it's just a walk around the gardens and you don't go in.
It's just like a fairy tale.
And we've done that with friends when we don't have time to actually go inside. But that's where I would go, and then I'd spend the last night walking around Copenhagen. Yep. So that's kind of how I would change if I recommend to somebody, what are your 8 days? Now, if I extended days, I'd go to an island. I'd do so many other things. Maybe go to Legoland.
It's just endless.
But if I had 8 days, I would not spend them all in Copenhagen like we did last time. We're converts. We love Fune, we love the islands, we love Jylland and all this stuff now. Yeah. So the good news is we recognize Copenhagen isn't everything. Yeah, there's so much cool stuff to do here, but there's also great stuff to do elsewhere. And I would do that if I came back to Denmark again for the first time. But we don't have to because we live here and we can just go these places all the time. All right. Well, we thought it'd be fun to share with you that first kind of transformative trip for us to Denmark when we came back in 2012, which is now 9 years ago. And it's 6 years before we had moved here.
It's still crazy to me that we live here now.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's been weird because of COVID. We're basically been at home and nowhere else. But when we come downtown and we go other places, it's just like, wow, this is like...
You just catch yourself. You're like, I live here now.
Yeah, it's just magical for us. And thank you so much for watching and continuing to stay engaged and comment and like and subscribe and all those things. It means a ton to us when we hear from you all.
Even when we do things wrong, it's a learning lesson for us.
Yeah, it's, I mean, because I'm sure we said or did something wrong here because... you can't win them all.
For us,
And when you talk for 20 minutes, it's likely something's going to not be perfect. But that's fine. We enjoy it. It's fun. It makes us laugh. And I know a lot of it's said in just good fun.
Yeah, definitely.
So thank you so much. And there you go. That was our first trip and a revised itinerary if we came back to Denmark. And we will, talk to you later. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.